Hi everyone. I'm not going to say that I'm perfectly centered. You know what? We're here and we're doing this. And hi, how are you? How is everybody? It's been a minute. It has been an extraordinarily busy couple of weeks for me. So I really appreciate the fact that no one has posted something in the comments of one of my videos like, where the hell are you? What's going on? Etc. I appreciate that. Um, And you know, it's funny, I always do my new moon videos after the new moon. And yesterday, I knew that I would be doing this video today. And I thought, oh, I feel like I can divide this content into two videos. And if I had done a video yesterday, I would have done one yesterday and one after the new moon today. And I was just like, I'm just going to do it in the morning. And so what if it's before the new moon? And wouldn't you know it, the way the day planned out, I'm kind of in a state of wonder around this. I got freed up to start doing this video right after the new moon at 5:52 p.m. my time, and it is now 6:30 p.m. after I kind of got myself sorted and everything sorted, and so I'm kind of in amazement around that. Just because I really did think I would be doing this morning, and here we are, and that's wonderful, and that's perfect. This is a new moon in Virgo. And the title of this new moon could very much be Opportunity, but I'm going to use the title 3 Steps Forward because it is from the phrase 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, however you want to do it. But we're talking about 3 steps forward. As I have said numerous times, the second half of this year is characterized by a change, new opportunities and new portals beckoning for all of us that have to do with especially the changing of the eclipse signs. And old drama that needs to be shed and dealt with somehow. Okay? And that theme really does continue till the end of the year, and even into the first half of next year, certainly till February of next year. But till the first half of next year, because the last of the eclipses on the Gemini-Sagittarius axis happens in December. But the Taurus-Scorpio eclipses start up on November the 19th, and they're with us for a good couple of years, unlike these sort of Gemini-Sagittarius eclipses that feel like they've been around for a very compressed amount of time. But boy, has that Gemini eclipse from June the 10th packed a punch, because this second half of the year, it really does feel like the sign of Gemini with the Mercury retrograde that happened about 2 or 3 months ago, and the eclipse that occurred in conversation with that Mercury retrograde, in conjunction with that Mercury retrograde, square Neptune, has very much defined the second half of this year. And the key planet, Neptune in Pisces, and crises from 2015, 2016, come back to haunt us. And stay to haunt us, because some of the past energies that we are dealing with and putting behind us have very much to do with where Pisces sits in our chart. Very much. Because Neptune has played a very active and powerful role, especially in the second half of this year, with the Gemini eclipses that have cast their shadow over the second half of this year, and with Neptune, themes of exalted, mystical, fantasy-filled, erotic romance, and heightened spirituality, and a loss of self, and trying to merge with, almost kind of a Sufi mysticness, but in very real terms when it comes to money and relationships, deceit, gaslighting, thievery, loss, and a kind of a woolliness, smoke and mirrors. Neptune, for example, governs the silver screen, this idea that people on screens and our projection onto them, and people in general, delusion is the word that I would use, and part of that delusion also has to do with our own deludedness. Am I dealing with this? Am I dealing with this? Am I really dealing with this? Or am I dealing, as I've said, are you dealing with a bee in the room or a grizzly in the room? That kind of feeling. You've heard me see this over and over again. Why am I bringing it up now with this new moon in Virgo? Well, we have Pluto in Capricorn, Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius, Neptune in Pisces, Chiron in Aries, Uranus and Taurus. These are consecutive signs. And we have the personal planets, by that I mean the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, relatively close together, starting to separate. Venus is starting to separate, going through parts of the chart that are opposite these. And this has been going on for a while and continues, you know. And so not too long ago, I think September 2nd, we had Mars opposite Neptune. So we've already had Venus opposite Neptune. We have Mars opposite Neptune. And in about a week's time, we're going to have the Sun opposite Neptune. So we're coming into this new moon in Virgo not too long ago and continuing to shine a light on these old themes. When I say that the theme or the subject or the topic is 3 steps forward, I'm almost thinking of this kind of, you know how we have these images of these kind of dogs who look both ways, forward and back. We're kind of that creature that has to focus on both, that is focusing on both. We're not in the new yet, and we have not shed the old yet. And shedding the old really feels like it will require shining a light on something, or at least that poker game that we've been referring and referencing in the last few videos that go back to May or June, and this kind of Neptunian activity. And Pisces, the sign of Pisces, may define the what that you're fighting over, and the sign of Gemini may define the who you're fighting with, you know. And there may be a past link to these kinds of issues. Those energies, that kind of poker playing, that kind of figuring out whether they're dealing with a grizzly or a bee, that kind of, am I deluded? Is something going, that kind of murkiness, that kind of exalted, murky, fantasy-filled loss. And in very exalted terms, with Neptune, you can associate the arts and inspiration and the muses and spirituality, renunciation, merging with the divine, that kind of you know, that kind of sort of intoxicated feeling. And of course lower aspects of the energy then deal with intoxication of lower kinds, alcohol and drugs and addictions and all that kind of stuff. So irrespective, that planet exercise, and Mars opposite Neptune 3 or 4 days ago, very, you know, do I fight this? Do I not fight this? Do I stand up for myself? Do I not? What is going on? And then in a week's time, the Sun shines a light on Neptune. And watch for that as the week goes on and as the moon gains power. You are still dealing with looking back energies. And as I said, you continue dealing with those and drawing boundaries and fighting or arguing or negotiating, cleaning out those cobwebs till at least the end of this year, till that Gemini full moon in December, and also into next year as this handoff occurs. But September the 19th is 2 months before the November 19th eclipse. So the week before and after September 19th will be important and will give you a sense of the new set of energies that are coming in. And part of the reason why the Virgo new moon especially, and to some extent the Pisces full moon 2 weeks from now, are the two, I'm sorry to give you this bad news, are the two truly forward-looking and positive lunations we have till the Gemini full moon at the end of the year. The Libra new moon a month from now is horrible. Sorry. The Aries full moon, black. The Scorpio new moon, ugh. Then the 2 eclipses, and then the Gemini full moon, which brings the Gemini eclipse to some sort of a close. This Virgo new moon trines Uranus, almost exactly. And we talk a lot about trines and squares, and they're kind of happening, but here you can't deny it. And Uranus is my favorite planet. Clarity, epiphanies, intuition. And I wouldn't be surprised if intuition and messages are really active around the time of this new moon, going into it over the past 48 hours. And I wouldn't be surprised if it plays sort of a key role over the next month or so. but more importantly, authenticity and liberation. And some would say rebellion, but authenticity, liberation, quantum leaps of understanding, of clarity. The Sun opposing Neptune in a week will certainly create an opportunity for clarity around those things from the past that we feel like we need to close out, clean out, fight, win or lose, play poker on, all that kind of stuff. But the new energy, over the next 2 weeks, Mercury goes retrograde on September the 27th. So I'm going to say that over the next 2 weeks, go for it. Just go for it. What is this new energy? Where does Taurus sit in your chart, my dears? Where does Taurus sit in your chart? Where does Aquarius sit in your chart, where the Saturn-Aquarius square is happening? We've just had a couple of trines to Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius on the day of this new moon, although they're before the new moon, so I'm not really counting them as extremely important as far as the next 4 weeks are concerned. But we've just had Mercury trine Saturn and Venus trine Jupiter. I mean, gorgeous transits. Portals opening. What needs to be sorted out in Aquarius that's going to liberate you in Taurus? And socially and politically, the question becomes, what are we dealing with in terms of social justice and equality that sort of frees the planet and sustainability? But I'm more interested, because these are meant for you personally, if you know your chart, what house does Aquarius occupy? What house does Taurus occupy? What do those houses stand for? It's a new moon in Virgo, so you can't ignore what house Virgo sits in, because this new moon is in direct conversation and supporting the sign of Taurus, Uranus in Taurus. And the reason why I'm bringing Aquarius into the equation is because the Saturn-Uranus square is active for the rest of the year, and we've just had these trines to Aquarius. If you want me to simplify this, I'm just going to say this. Where does Taurus sit in your chart? What house does it occupy? What does that stand for? Where does Virgo sit in your chart? What house does that occupy? What does that stand for? And what is it that you could be creating or harnessing or capitalizing on or pushing forward as new projects or new energy in the sign of Virgo, or in that house that supports the the Taurus house for you, okay? New moon trines Taurus. There's an opportunity to grow in a direction that is right for you, feels liberated, feels authentic, and that the universe is trying to sort of expand, give you some clarity, expand. So if there are projects that you've got lined up, and if you don't know your chart, whether you know or don't know your chart, the bottom line is this: if there are projects you've got lined up that have to do with where you want to go, and it's going to feel like where you want to go in your heart, and what you want to grow, and where the excitement is, and where the liberation is, where the authenticity is, next 2 weeks, cross those items off your to-do list. Cross those items off your to-do list, because by the end of the month, and also one more thing, Mercury enters its shadow period for the retrograde today, in a couple of hours' time. So by that I mean Mercury is going to be going direct till the end of September. Then on September the 27th, it's going to go retrograde, and on October the 18th, it's going to go direct again. But this point where it goes direct on October the 18th, Mercury is going to touch that point today. So starting today, the degrees that Mercury goes over, whatever it is that we're going to be thinking about communicating, processing, is what is going to go over a revision starting the 27th, and then start to get cleared up and move towards resolution after October the 18th. Mercury clears the shadow period on November the 3rd. And as Mercury does this, we can't ignore that Mercury is going to be opposing Chiron. Now, with all the oppositions I've talked about, to Pluto, to Saturn, to Jupiter, to Neptune, the Chiron ones are likely to be the most painful, because Chiron is trying to heal something wherever the sign of Aries is in your chart. And healing something means dealing with the wound. You got to feel what you got to heal. You got to acknowledge it. You got to see that it's there. You got to look at the problem. You got to look at the issues. You got to look at the triggers. You got to look at the hurt. You got to look at the pain. You got to look at the wound. You got to look at the damage. You got to look at all of that in order to acknowledge that there's an issue and figure out how you're going to heal it. And as these planets, and particularly the new moon a month from now, kind of oppose Chiron, it's a little bit like it's a little bit like these planets going to punch the wound and finger it. It's just like, there it is, and there it is, and there it is. And it's just like, ugh. So as I said, past issues is still very much part of the equation, but don't ignore what is so fantastic about this new moon today. If you're feeling a sense of optimism, if you're feeling a sense of gung-ho-ness, if you're feeling like there's something new in the air, if you're feeling like, all right, let's go, and yes, I've got past stuff to deal with, but I want to, that's the right feeling. Get out your to-do list. What are the projects you want to do that are affirming, that are positive, that are not mired in past issues, that feel constructive, that feel like if you did not have anything else, that is where you would be putting your focus, and put your focus on that and get that crap out of the way over the next 2 weeks. You can continue to get it out of the way over the next month. You will continue to get it out of the way into November. But then as the portal is created for the new, you're gonna have to, it's almost like, I'll use this analogy. For some people it'll be true, but not for everybody, of course. It's like you're moving house. It's like you're moving cities. And you've got to first figure out and set your sights on where you're going to move to. And then you've got to deal with the cleanup and the packing and the sorting out and the tossing away. And so for the next month, you get to look for, invest in. It's a new moon in Virgo, guys. Invest in, execute in, do some process, think, execute towards the new direction. And then, in about a month's time especially, but even in the next 2 weeks' time, you're going to start to deal with, all right, I'm back to my old location, and I'm going to start to deal with the cleanup pretty much till the end of this year, and even to some extent into next year. Okay? And then the portal and the path for something new opens. This new moon trines Uranus. The only aspect that I am interested in as far as this new moon is concerned, although a lot of people are talking about these trines and Venus squaring Pluto as we head to it, but Venus trining Jupiter. Was it Venus that squared Pluto? Yes, it did. Goodness. And then trining Jupiter. Okay. All these trines, especially on the couple of squares that we've had leading up to this new moon, interest me less. What is absolutely relevant to me is the trine to Uranus in Taurus, and the conversation Uranus and Taurus is having with Aquarius, the planets Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius, and Mercury in Libra opposing Chiron in Aries. Those are the only two things that matter to me about this particular new moon. And out of the two, it's the trine to Uranus that matters. So will you be dealing with past issues, and will you be needing to feel and touch and examine and process wounds that need to be healed? Absolutely. And that theme with the oppositions, and especially next new moon a month from now that is conjunct Mars while Mercury is retrograde in Libra opposing Chiron, yuck. Yuck. But this new moon that trines Uranus, and that's just like, where do you want to go? Let's go. Be done with this crap, all this boring stuff we've got to deal with. Build the new. Build the new. What is on your to-do list that needs to be done in order to build the new? Do it next 2 weeks. Go for it. Focus on the 3 steps forward. You will be dealing with the 2 steps back. That's why I'm using that phrase, because it's part of a larger phrase. But it's that 3 steps forward that's important right now. The new moon is ruled by, it's in Virgo, Mercury, which is in Libra, and Venus, the ruler of Libra, is in Libra. So Venus is the dispositor of this chart, and Venus is in Libra. Somewhere, lucrative partnerships and contracts. What role would those have to play with? And something about them, either a portal or an opportunity being created, or heading into this new moon with Venus having trined Jupiter. I think it's just before the new moon, Venus trined Jupiter. Or yesterday at the most. No, just before the new moon. lucrative contracts, relationships, money, luxuries, and the arts to some extent. Venus trine Jupiter is the beautiful transit, you know, just partnerships. You know, I don't know how it applies to you. Marriage, contracts, agreements, handshakes, business partners, personal partners. I'm not talking about romance necessarily. I'm certainly not talking about sexuality or obsession or desire. I'm talking about relationships. Your relationship to yourself and your relationship to others, and health and opportunity and partnerships, lucrative partnerships, constructive partnerships, investing in partnerships. I don't know what role those would have as you build towards the new, but the suggestion is there and it's clear. Handshakes, healing, restoring a sense of balance where things were imbalanced. With Venus in Libra kind of strewing flowers in front of people, whether they are friends or enemies, whether the relationships are positive or challenging, trying to heal. Venus in Libra is a sweet, sweet partnership-based talk, don't fight. It's not peace-like, let's bliss out. It's actively working, cordiality, politeness, consideration. Could play a role somehow over the next month. So, new moon trine Uranus, where's Taurus in your chart? Something is trying to be liberated and create something authentic there. Quantum leaps in that part of the chart. And this new moon in Virgo is trying to build something in a Virgoic manner, constructive execution, your to-do list, organized execution. Get the stuff done and the projects done that are going to lead to the new. And in the meantime, there's no question that you're going to be tackling and dealing with the old wounds, and within a week's time, having the light of the sun, your inner consciousness, look directly at those issues that go back to 2015, 2016 that may have to do with fantasy, delusion, or actually gaslighting and deceit and naughtiness and poker playing. But the emphasis right now, really over the next 2 weeks, must be on the future, okay? Once we get to September 19th, week before, week after, it's not that far. You know, 2 months before the full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus. Important. So just build towards that. And you will have plenty of opportunity to deal with the past issues. They will come up to, you will have to face them. In a month's time especially, you will have to face them. And with Mercury being retrograde, you're going to have decisions to make, you're going to have conversations to have, you're going to have lines you're going to need to draw to the sand, you're going to be fighting. So create the new and welcome the new constructively, and enjoy while you can the idea of new vistas that you can move towards. And remember during this time that the overall message for the second half of this year, for this year in general, is to not fall into the path of least resistance and old patterns and behaviors where Aquarius sits in your chart that would impact negatively your being able to live up to your fullest potential. Okay, I will leave it at that. Please feel free to share this video, like it, comment on it, of course, because it gives it more circulation on YouTube. My contact information will be in the description area, so you can reach out to me there to inquire about rates for readings where I can make easy to read versions of your chart that tell you which planets are in which houses and which signs on which houses and roughly what that stuff means very succinctly and very briefly, so you can inquire about rates for that as well. I will leave it at that. Happy new moon in Virgo. Enjoy a positive lunation like this one. In and of itself, this new moon in Virgo is very interesting, very exciting, very much leading and headed to the future. Yes, there are other transits that are past oriented, but we can't help that. The Pisces full moon that follows still has a lot of focus on positivity. So next month, but especially 2 weeks, where do you want to get to? What are your priorities that you may not have been able to work towards? Put that front and center and deal with that and get that going. And also watch over the next 2 weeks, but even over the next 48 hours, what comes to you. What comes to you? Could be something interesting, could be something exciting. Okay? With the iconography we've got here. I think tomorrow the sun trines Uranus. All right, I will stop jabbering on. Till the next one.